Oh, hey, just me. All right, let's talk money. All right, so I was talking to my Spanish teacher and through a couple forums the last couple days. I realized there's this like weird disconnect with money conversions and understanding maybe the impact of money locally too, and how you should kind of be sensitive to that. So the first thing is just quick conversions. Right now, the conversion rate for U.S. dollars to Colombian pesos, and we're going to talk about U.S. dollars and Colombian pesos, and specifically, shopping around in Medellin. So, as my example, so right now the conversion rates, it can be anywhere from 4,200 or 4,200 pesos. That it was getting high to like 45 and 4. I think it even got to like 46 for one U.S. dollar. Okay, quick insert here. So I mentioned 4,200 to 4,500 is like an average exchange rate in the past. I've corrected that with a little overlay, but the audio still says 4,200 to 4,500. It's actually more like 4,500 to 4,900. So the 5 that I use is really just a reference. It's not giving you an exact number. So if you're trying to figure out an exact price, then pull out a calculator and divide the exchange rate and figure it out. But if you want to be able to look at a sign and go, how much is that? How much is 100,000 and 100,000 pesos? You're like, okay, divided by 5, drop the 3 zeros at the end, divide by 5, that's $20. That's about 20 US dollars. That's what I use it for. It's just a quick general reference. And again, if you need an exact number, you have to check the current exchange rate. It's, it can fluctuate. All right, just want to be clear about that. Good luck out there. The easiest way to do this is to just do it as though it's 5,000. It's just really quick math. And it also helps some things when we go to look at something from the Colombian side where they're earning pesos and spending pesos. So first thing I want to let you know is I'll bring up this little worksheet I have here. So let me, where we go? Open up my Excel and let's go with it here. All right, so right now, what I would just tell you is that a quick reference is 5,000 pesos, $1. 100,000 pesos, $20. Okay, and the reason it's important to just do the big 100,000 is because that's what you're going to see as you're looking at prices, right? You're going to see these big like 100,000, million, billion, and you'd be like, it's overwhelming. So we can do some really quick math. The one thing to know, again, this is as a U.S. citizen or U.S. dollar spender, is when you see the Colombian pesos, like let's just say you see something that's 200,000 pesos, 200,000. To do the quick conversion, just in your head, drop the last 3 zeros. You treat them like cents, if you will, in US dollars. Drop the last 3 digits, so the 200,000 becomes just 200. Now divide that by 5, okay? So when you divide that by 5, in this situation, you get 40. So that 200,000 is 200,000 pesos is 40 US dollars. Your 100,000 pesos, drop the last 3, becomes 100, and your 100 divided by 5 becomes 20 US dollars. Why that's helpful is anybody traveling, one of the big things you're trying to figure out is, first off, just in general, how much is this thing actually costing me that I'm getting ready to buy? And am I getting ripped off? Like, should I be spending this much money for this ride from the airport to my, my hotel? So it's important to be able to do that stuff. And that's really quick math. And I think anybody can really do that. Again, drop the last 3 zeros, pretend they're like the pennies and the cents in the US dollar, and then divide the leftover by 5. So if you have a million, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. If you had 1,000,000 pesos, you drop the 3, now you're left with 1,000 pesos. You drop the last 3 zeros, you're left with 1,000 pesos. Divide that by 5. 1,000,000 pesos is equivalent to 200 US dollars. Okay, so now that we've said that, let's look at some actual examples, things you're going to see, and just some cool examples. First thing I want to look at is when you go, if you're in a local town and stuff, maybe not so much if you're in Poblado, like in an expensive area, but they'll have things like the menu of the day where you can go in and buy like a fairly big meal, big plate, rice and beans and juice and soup. And, if you have one, it might sell for, I'm just picking a number here, it might sell for 10,500 pesos. So as an American, you're like, well, is that costing me a lot of money? Yes or no? it's the equivalent of $2.10. So you might think, wow, $2.10 for this big meal. I'm paying $3 or $4 for a Big Mac or an egg sandwich from McDonald's. So yeah, $2.10 is awesome for this big plate, the soup and the juice and whatever else is coming in that. So for you as a traveler, that's a great deal. You're like, wow, this is amazing. And we're going to talk a little later about why I think you should also have some sensitivity about this when you're traveling, just so you don't come off as being insensitive to locals. Although people in Medellin are just super, super, super nice. But now let's try something a little more expensive. Now you're there and you want to go to a really nice restaurant. Really nice restaurant that's in Medellin. Actually, they've got, I think, 6 or 7 different locations. Mundo Verde. And here's an example of one of their special plates. And that's 43,900 pesos. So you're like, okay, so is that getting expensive? 43,900 pesos. What's the US dollar equivalent? So if we put that in here, 43,900, you'll see that that's the equivalent of $8.78. You're not going to go to a really nice restaurant in the US in many places and only pay less than $9 for this superior entree dish that the chef has been spending a ton of time making for you, and it's considered, one of their top menu items. So yes, for you, that's a really good buy to get that really nice meal for $9. Again, this is just the entree in this situation. Now let's look at some other things. First, we're going to look at something that I love, and that's this Ducati. This is a bike I had in the past, so I've just, my heart, when I see this, I'm like, oh. So this is a 2013 1199 Ducati, gorgeous bike. So they're selling this for 62 million pesos. So again, to do the math conversion, we're going to drop off the last 3 zeros. So then it becomes 62,000. And then we're going to divide that 62,000 by 5. And we get 12,400. So that 62 million pesos feels to me with US dollars as $12,400. So again, not too bad for that bike for 2013. I don't know what the miles are on it, but it doesn't matter. 16,000 or 18,000 kilometers. So, okay, not too bad. Again, for me, US dollars doesn't feel too bad. But now let's talk about things that I think almost all of us, maybe a lot of you aren't driving around on really, really expensive sport bikes. Let's talk housing. I think anybody from the US can kind of have a soul searching when it comes to the cost of housing in the US. So let's look at first this house in Sabaneta. This is an apartment and it's 190 million pesos. All right, 190 million pesos. It's a nice looking apartment. It's, again, I'm not physically there, so I don't know what the room sizes feel like, but I'm looking at these tiles. You imagine those tiles are probably 18 by 18, so you can kind of guess some of the room sizes. But 190 million, you're like, okay, again, is that expensive? So again, we're gonna just type this in here. So I have the math built in. Excuse me, well, Cooper, don't be mean. So that 190 million pesos, it's only 38,000 US dollars. 38,000 US dollars. You're not going to buy, again, I live in Northern Virginia, not too far from DC. So you're not buying anything. You're probably not even buying a mobile home for $38,000 here, right? You're not doing it. So you think, wow, that's amazing. I could buy an apartment there for $38,000. So yes, again, your US dollars buying peso products. Again, let's not talk electronics because those are obscenely expensive there. Yes, that's a really good deal for you. Now let's look at this other house just to start bringing the numbers up a little bit. So this house, 580 million pesos, right? So 580, 123, 123. And again, we're going to remove the last 3 zeros and then divide the rest by 5. And we come up with 116,000 US dollars. Still not too bad. Everything's relative. Don't get me wrong. Depends on your income and your situation. But somebody from the US hearing that they could buy this single family home with a lot of land and these big vaulted ceilings for 116,000 US dollars. That seems like a pretty good deal to most people with American dollars. Now let's really move the number up so we can talk about some things and say like, okay, what's this? Here's a property in Medellin that's at 3.5 billion pesos, right? Now it's like, oh my God, that must be really, really expensive. And it is, but still. So equivalent US dollars, 700,000 equivalent US dollars. A lot of people in the US can't buy that house, right? Let's just face it, right? That's a tough buy for most people. Now in Northern Virginia where I live, there are plenty of houses around me that are at least $700,000, but not everybody can buy them, right? So this quick reference is important. Again, your buying power coming from the US is 5 times greater when you're in Colombia. It's basically the way to look at that. Your $20 is worth $100 when you're buying there. Your $100 is worth $500. Your $1,000, $5,000, right? So that's quick conversion. Now let's look at something that I think is important to know, and that's really, so how does it feel to somebody born and raised in Colombia, earning pesos and trying to buy pesos? How can you as an American really feel like what they're going through? Well, knowing that their economy and their income is a fifth of ours, this is what you can quickly do. And when you see these numbers, you'll be like, okay, I see what's going on here. Let me just reveal this for a second here. And then let's get rid of this ribbon again. So now let's look at those numbers, how it feels to a local who has Colombian pesos and they're buying pesos, right? They're buying products with pesos. And what that buying power is. Remember, they can only buy a fifth of what we can. So that breakfast, this was $2.10 to you, like actual conversion, it feels like $10.50 to them. So now think about this. If you were buying breakfast in the US for $10.50 every single day, I think you'd start to question like, maybe I'm not going to do this every day. Depending on what you make, again, it's all relative. But I think most people are like, maybe once a week, right? It's hard to rationalize spending $10 for breakfast when you could make yourself breakfast for hardly any money at all at home. But maybe you're in a hurry, so you're like, maybe 1 or 2 days. I think when you look at it at $10.50, you can realize why somebody in Medellin, for example, isn't going to eat out breakfast every single day, right? So there's just a quick reference. That really expensive meal that was only was under $9 for you at Mundo Verde, that feels like $43 to them. Now imagine being in the US and going to a restaurant where you're paying $44 just for the entree, just for the main dish. You know that you're an expensive restaurant at that point. That you're not going to go there every day. That's, hey, we're traveling, we're on vacation, maybe we got a little extra money, we want to enjoy ourselves. That's when maybe you pull something like that, or it's a special holiday or an anniversary, birthday, whatever. You're not going there every day. You as a U.S. citizen of Medellin, for $9 a plate, you might be able to go there every day depending on what your resources are. Most Colombians, not a chance. Now look at the houses, right? That 62, or let's forget the Ducati. That house in Sabaneta that was 190 million pesos, that feels like $190,000 to them. That's already significant. That's significant for a lot of people here in the U.S. That house that's 580 million pesos, that feels to them like $580,000. To us, it feels like 116,000. Multiply that by 5, because again, the 5 times the buying power, or 1/5 the buying power, for them in Medellin, and that feels like 580,000 US. And that 3.5 billion pesos for that really nice single family in Medellin, that it's 700,000 US to us. Well, that's 3.5 million to them. That feels like 3.5 million to them. The only reason I wanted to go through this column is just to add that little sensitivity when you're there, like, oh my God, like just having some real boisterous conversation about, this is so cheap, I can't believe it. What are these people complaining about? Because people there, they struggle, right? It is a third world country, right? So when you show up with US dollars, while it's great for the economy and everybody there is so friendly, I think it's also nice if you just kind of keep in mind that for them, it's a struggle. Like, these prices seem like they're so amazing to you, and it is why a lot of expats want to go and retire in Colombia as, a chosen, country to go to. But keep that in mind, all right? So as we finish up, 100,000 pesos, 20 bucks. That's a quick way for you to reference that. 100,000 pesos feels like $100 to a local. All right, I hope this helps. And if I confused you more, I apologize. Leave a note, a comment below if you like. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And I appreciate you spending this 15 minutes